So Harvard just released a very interesting study basically saying most people using AI at work are actively making themselves worse, including top consultants at top consulting firms. And the study's intention was not simply does AI improve performance, but it was more subtle. They wanted to understand how knowledge workers use AI during a full problem solving process and what it does to their skills long term, their judgment, and expertise. And the actual task was basically 244 junior associates and consultants from Boston Consulting Group were asked to analyze a fictional company. And the name of the company is Kleding. And it had three brands, basically for men, women, and kids. And they had to decide which one of these three brands the CEO, the fictional CEO, should invest in to drive growth. And to do this, they were given an interview notes from fictional executives and historical business performance data. And then they had to submit a CEO memo of 500 words or less with their recommendation. So basically, it was a classic consultant exercise. So which company should the CEO invest in? And the researchers watched how they used AI to get there. And some people used AI like a sparring partner, some used it like Google plus some editor, and some basically pasted the whole task into AI and let it write the answer. And that was the real point of study. Same task, same AI, same type of workers, but completely different ways of working with it. And maybe the deeper research question was something like, when these knowledge workers use generative AI, who is actually doing the thinking? The human, the AI, or both? And more specifically, the study looked at two questions. Who decides what needs to be done? Who decides how it gets done? And that's how they ended up with three categories. And this is probably someone is a very nerdy at Harvard, because the categories were cyborgs, centaurs, and self-automators. And once they looked at data, they found three completely different ways people used AI. So the first one was so-called cyborgs. This was actually the biggest group, around 60% of the consultants. And they used AI this way. Cheers. So cyborgs work with AI almost throughout the whole process. They used it to frame the problem, analyze the data, come up with ideas, and then challenge the recommendation, improve the memo, and rewrite things basically and polish the final output. So they were not just copying and pasting one answer, they were actively working with AI. And the takeaway from this group is interesting because on the surface, this sounds like the best way to use AI. You're not being lazy, you are engaged, you are asking follow-up questions, and you are pushing it. You are collaborating, right? And the study found that this group was developing AI-related skills, and they were getting better at working with AI itself. But there was still quite a big problem, I think, because when they asked AI to check its own work, AI could still confidently confirm the wrong answer. And I've talked about this previously, and I think this is a massive problem. The wrong answer that technically sounds correct. So the dangerous version is basically when AI is wrong, but it sounds professional. And it gives you structure, gives you reasoning, gives you clean answer. It writes like someone who knows what they're talking about. And because the output looks good, you start relaxing your own judgment. This happens to me as well. And I've talked about it already, where like you submit a hard task and then it gives you an answer that sounds good and your brain is just like, someone else who's smarter solved this, right? But the key takeaway from Cyborg Group was using AI a lot can make you better at using AI, but it doesn't automatically make your thinking better. And then there was a second group, which was the Centaurs. Go Centaurs. And this was actually the smallest group, which was only around 14% of the consultants. But they were the most interesting one, in my opinion, because they used AI selectively. They did not hand over the whole task. They did not ask AI just to solve a problem for them. They used it more like a tool. So for example, They would ask AI how to calculate something, or what formula to use, or what market trends to consider, or how to make their own writing clearer. But the important part is that they still did the actual thinking themselves. Looked at data basically, looked at the recommendations, what mattered, and I actually thought about the logic, right? And AI in this case was helping them, but it was not driving the whole process. And according to the study, this group had the highest accuracy in their business recommendations. So that is pretty big finding in my opinion, because the people who used AI the most were not necessarily the most accurate. And the takeaway from the Centaur group is this: AI seems to work the best when it helps you think, not when it thinks instead of you. And then there was the third group, the self-automators. This was around 27% of the consultants. And this is the group that every company should be worried about, because especially if you're paying for Boston Consulting consultants, which is quite a lot of money, you should be worried, because they basically gave AI the whole task. They pasted in the problem, the interview notes, the financial data, and the instructions, and asked AI to produce that answer. So some of them accepted the output almost as it was. Others made small edits, but they were not really using AI to learn the problem, to really understand the logic behind it. They were using AI to get past the problem. And I think that difference matters, because the output can still look good and be like technically or look technically correct. But I think the most worrying part here is that it's not like the self-automators produce some obviously terrible robot answer every time. The work can actually look clean. It can look structured. It can sound like a consultant wrote it. But underneath the polished output, the person has not really developed anything. They didn't build more domain expertise. They didn't build better judgment or better AI skill. They just completed the task. And I think at some point it becomes bigger than just these consultants, because it's probably happening everywhere right now and basically in every job, where the work is to take messy information and turn it into a decision. And AI makes this much easier. You know, it makes it so much easier to produce an answer, and we're so susceptible to things that make us comfortable. And thinking is hard. So we tend to, lean towards the more comfortable action. And when you have this AI there, it makes complete sense, right? To use it. And it gives you this polished answer. Like, why wouldn't you use it? But the danger is that AI is useful enough to let you skip the part of work where your brain actually improves. And maybe this is how people will start without being going into massive hypotheticals, but like it doesn't sound so off when more and more people will start outsourcing their thinking on AI. Eventually, they will not be able to do anything without AI. And this is a little bit scary, because even though there's not majority of people, like it still is significant amount of people, right? If you look at the percentages, this is 27% of consultants, right? That's like massive when you think about it. So I think the main takeaway here is, don't use AI as, God. Don't use it as some sort of expert on everything. Use it to help you and guide you with specific problems, but try and make the strategy and logic behind the task that you need to execute yourself. Do it yourself, do the thinking, focus more on infrastructure strategy and problem solving, and then use the AI to nudge you, to give you information, to do research for you, to just like format data for you, and so on and so forth. So definitely an interesting one today. And yeah, great takeaways. In my opinion, this was really, really interesting study. And if you like these sort of videos, please subscribe to this channel, and I'll be releasing them once or twice a week and maybe even more often. So yeah, And if you have any opinions or you want to fill in some blanks here, please comment and I'll make sure to reply. Until the next one, take care of yourself. Stay strong. Bye.